New Jersey Governor Christie making his White House bid official just minutes ago, speaking in his hometown of Livingston, New Jersey, where it all began, surrounded by friends and family. The governor living by his campaign slogan, "Tell it like it is," laying out his agenda in the upfront style that he's known for.
And now, as Livingston and New Jersey turns its gaze to the rest of America today, what do we see and what do we have to confront? We need a campaign of big ideas and hard truths and real opportunity for the American people. We need to fix a broken entitlement system that is bankrupting our country. We have candidates who have said we can't confront this because if we do, we'll be lying and stealing from the American people. Let me fill everybody else in. The lying and stealing has already happened. The horse is out of the barn. We got to get it back in, and you can only do it by force.
Christie is now the 14th announced candidate in the running for the Republican nomination, and that number will continue to grow when Governors John Kasich and Scott Walker, as expected, make it official next month. All right, Stephen Hayes, a lot of buzz around Christie. Some people are wondering, can he do it or did he miss his moment? And if he can do it, I'd like your thoughts on what the pathway is for him to win.
Yeah, I think it's a huge challenge for Christie right now. A lot of people believe that his time was in 2012 when he had people begging him to run. He had delegations from Iowa traveling out to New Jersey to implore him to run. He declined, said at the time that he wasn't ready. And now here he is, but he's had some setbacks since then. He's had the Bridgegate scandal, which has fascinated the national media, certainly, gotten a lot of attention in the New Jersey media. He had the hug with President Obama, which when I talk to conservatives around the country, that's the first thing that they remember. They think it's, this embrace, both figurative and literal, of President Obama in the days before the election after Hurricane Sandy really sits poorly with conservatives. Yeah. That's his biggest challenge. I mean, I think he has two openings, right? His one opening is to go to New Hampshire, to put himself in town halls, to be in settings like this one where he's speaking extemporaneously, he's making a case, and he can try to win voters over. He did that back in March when I was up there, and people who went and heard him speak said, I'm surprised to like him as much as I do. And the other opening, I think, for him is in the debates. He's very good in the debates. I think he'll come across as more conservative and a harsher critic of President Obama than people are used to. That would be his other way back into sort of discussion. Yeah,
but it's not just the serial hugging that gets him in trouble, Harris. I mean, as Steve Hayes mentioned, he's going to have to run against President Obama. But there's some clips of him in the past of him saying there's not a promise that President Obama didn't keep, of course, referring to Hurricane Sandy. I mean, he also has shot inside the tent at Republicans. So the base isn't happy. He didn't want Mitt Romney to campaign in New Jersey. A lot of things where I think the base is saying, whose side are you on?
Well, and there was that complicated convention speech where I think it was several minutes, long minutes before he even got to the candidate who was running for the GOP when he was speaking at that convention. Remember that?
Yeah,
It was all about
criticism
Christie and so on and so forth. But I thought what he did really well today, though, was reset the story on who he is. And he talked about, what it was like to grow up in an area where you would have a big dream and then become, a governor of a great state. And he said the words, and I thought about Sandra as he was speaking. He said something that really might have hit home with viewers, with people in that audience about the economy. 6 years in a row, I balanced the budget. And he talked about what New Jersey was like before that. And I think there were some similarities between New Jersey and the rest of the country, both demographically and also some of the financial things that, and in full disclosure, I live in New Jersey, so I'm very familiar with the financial things we were facing, a decade ago. But it was interesting. I don't know if that kind of a reset gets past the hashtag buzzword of Bridgegate. That's the question.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about, Sandra, because he does have an impressive record in New Jersey, but it is overshadowed by all these other headlines like Bridgegate, like the hug, and all these other things.
He will be challenged, though, on his record as far as the economy is concerned in the state, because neighboring states have seen jobs come back at a faster rate since the recession than his state. Certainly, I believe that will be challenged come debate time. Also, he's going to have to show revenues have come down in the state of New Jersey as well. There's a few points where he's going to be challenged there and where Jeb Bush would shine if put up against his record as far as the economy in their two states.
Yeah, you've had ratings downgrades in New Jersey repeatedly, which I think his opponents will point to. But also the way that he's framing this campaign is he's the guy who's going to tell you the truth. He'll tell you the hard truths. You might not like to hear it, but particularly on entitlements, he's the one who's going to tell us how to solve our problems. He also was a governor who accepted Medicaid expansion under Obamacare. This was after he'd given a speech saying that Medicaid expansion without dealing with Medicaid growth would ruin the country, and then he accepted Medicaid expansion. He's going to have to square that circle.
Stephen, what about his record, though? I mean, I was just going to, sorry, Ainsley, say he has blocked a lot of very liberal bills that have been sent to him by a very liberal legislature, and he talks a lot about that. He says, I was the stopgap. I'm the one that blocked these things. I have a conservative record. I do have a record of reform. It's interesting, though, that you cited the other things that'll probably get more attention.
Well, and ask House Republicans how easy it is to message on this question of what they've stopped.
Yeah.
House Republicans get a lot of grief from the Republican base because they haven't done more in a positive way when they can, I think, rightfully say, look, we've stopped a lot of bad things.
Yeah. And Ainsley, some of his words have even resonated with me, like when he said, get the hell off the beach, you're tan enough, which I never think that I am because I'm tanorexic. What about his straight-talking style, though? I mean, I do like it, I have to say.
I do, too, and I think a lot of our viewers are going to like that, too. I think it's going to help him during the debates. I will say, without a doubt, we're all excited to see the debates now that he's in and Donald Trump is in. It's going to definitely make for some colorful debates. I like the fact that he's honest. It's very refreshing. I think it's going to be good to have Christie and Donald Trump in the debates because it's going to force the other candidates to be honest and not so PC with their answers. I think that if you talk to people who live in New Jersey, they really like him. If you watched his reaction to Sandy, it's obvious he loves his constituents. He was out there immediately trying to get things done and repairs happen. He sticks up for the people that he loves, for the people who have voted him in. He's had a lot of ups and downs. He has a lot of challenges to overcome, but I think the good outweighs the negative here. I think it's going to make it a little bit more enthusiastic.
He hasn't really had the greatest relationship with Republican press either. And I'd love to know your experience with him, Stephen, because he's open to sitting down with, say, a Sean Hannity or Fox News now. I had a radio program. I tried to get him on. He has shunned friendly media. Friends I talked to say his press office doesn't even return calls, even as recently as this week. Is he really serious about this? Or, I mean, there've been this sort of New Jersey-esque sort of like, blocking of friendly outlets. If he's going to try and convince the party that he's one of us or a Republican.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I certainly haven't had any trouble getting in touch with him or his people, and I've sat down with him several times on both on the record and off the record basis. And he's nice. I mean, he's engaging. He's an easy politician to talk to, and he's refreshing in the sense that when you sit down with him, you don't feel like he's not stopping to think, okay, what did my pollster tell me to say now? What does the focus group on this say? He just tells you, and I, as a reporter, regardless of politics, regardless of ideology, I love that. I mean, I find that
But can that win a presidential election?
I don't know if that alone can win a presidential election, particularly given some of the challenges that we've talked about here elsewhere. But, it might tell you more about how he's looking at the primary. I mean, if he's reluctant to engage with conservatives or conservative media, maybe he doesn't want to take those hard questions. Maybe he doesn't want to talk about Medicaid expansion and have to justify that.
Maybe wait to the point where he would have to at a debate, and his answers will be on a TikTok. So he knows he can't go on too long about it, and they can't go on too long about it because everybody wants their time at the debate. I have a question for you, Steve, just about how you can turn it around. And I know Andrea has so much experience in this messaging, too, for a candidate, so I'm anxious to hear from both of you. Is there a way to use the optics are difficult, I think, politically, of the hug around the opposite party president, but is there a way to use it as an advantage, saying, well, it's the American president, and my state was in trouble at the time. Other states where you had millions of people after Sandy, blah, blah, blah. Is there a way to show, because I kind of heard him doing that a little bit today, talking about reaching across the aisle and being the voice for everybody, it's one country, that sort of thing.
Yeah, not in a Republican primary. I mean, that's just not going to work. You're not going to be able to say, look, I had to do this. People were angry then. Yeah. People remain angry. I'm surprised at how often, when I'm talking to people and I'm handicapping the Republican presidential primary, how often people volunteer to me that they still are bothered by that moment. So I think that's a huge challenge for Christie, and one I think it'd be very hard for him to overcome. Andrea knows how to do this a lot better than I do. I mean, I'm not a message or a strategist, but we've seen this happen before where people have gotten a second look. And of course, the obvious example is John McCain in 2007, where he basically blew up his campaign. He fired a number of people. He had no money. He had been written off as dead. I mean, you go back and you read the campaign obituaries for John McCain at that that time, and they're hilarious in retrospect because everybody said, you know, you'd have to be drinking to think that John McCain could come back.